help me welcome another good friend of the NCRI and the MEK, the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Political and Military Affairs from 2001 to 2005, Ambassador Lincoln Bloomfield.
Thank you very much. Greetings to Maryam Rajavi and to our friends in the resistance and to my distinguished colleagues around the world. Thank you for your comments today. I share in the appreciation for our colleagues in Europe, the law enforcement and criminal justice and court system, for their diligent work and their honorable pursuit of justice. Here in Washington, I want to give an American view of what we have seen, because when the Belgian court first issued the verdict, they put out a very interesting ruling full of facts. I want to remind you of many of these facts because we don't seem to hear about them in Washington. This bomb was made of triacetone triperoxide, TATP. It's a chemical that you can purchase in many places in Europe, and yet Iran did not purchase the chemicals in Europe. According to the court, this bomb was made in Iran. It was tested several times. We've seen what TATP can do. You may recall there were tourists pushing a luggage cart in a departure lounge in Brussels, Belgium. TATP blew up the departure lounge in March of 2016. This bomb in Iran was much more powerful. It was tested several times. It had a communications capability so that Mr. Assadi perhaps could be walking in the street outside of the hall in Villepinte, far from the center. And as soon as he knew the bomb would be close to Maryam Rajavi and the rest of us, he could detonate this bomb. We know that it would be much larger than the bombings that ISIS conducted in Paris and Manchester, England, that launched a war, a coalition war against ISIS to defeat them. This would have been much bigger. And so when you look at this report, they talk about the Ministry of Intelligence and Security. They mention a branch of this ministry called Section 312. This is the branch that follows the resistance members, chases them down. It tries to compromise Iranians who are living abroad, pay them money, blackmail them, and then threaten their relatives. So I am in Washington, and I'm wondering, why don't we ever hear about the Ministry of Intelligence and Security? Why don't we ever hear about Section 312? When we see people from Iran sitting in universities and think tanks, and they have passports and go to Iran and talk to the leaders, is someone investigating whether they have been paid money, whether they have been blackmailed, whether their relatives have been threatened in Iran? I think we need to know this, because we talk about the Revolutionary Guards and the terrorism list. We never talk about Section 312 of the Ministry of Intelligence and Security. This is a new conversation that we need to have. And the fact that it went on a commercial airliner from Tehran to Vienna, how did that happen? Obviously, Iran abused the diplomatic privilege and the diplomatic pouch. It had terrorists posing as diplomats. The same thing happened a few months earlier in Albania, where another massive bombing was planned against Ashraf III. Who conducted this operation? The ambassador of Iran, who was expelled. So why don't we talk about the foreign ministry, not just under this crime against humanity, President Raisi, but his predecessor, Rouhani. Rouhani had a defense minister who helped blow up the US embassy and the Marines in 1983 in Lebanon. He had two justice ministers, Avayi and Pour Mohammadi, both of whom have blood on their hands from the 1988 massacre of political prisoners in Iran. So there has never been a relief, whether it's under the reformers or the principalists, it is the same. This is a regime which has several branches conducting acts of extremism, violence, and terror. The Ministry of Intelligence, the Revolutionary Guards, the Quds Force, the Justice Ministry, the Foreign Ministry. I think we need a new conversation in Washington, and I call on my friends to help launch a new conversation. Yes, we are concerned about Iran's nuclear program, but look at Ukraine. Vladimir Putin has 3,000 intercontinental ballistic missiles with the ability to blow up the entire United States. And yet we are providing billions of dollars of support to people who share our values, Ukraine, fighting against Russia? Well, we know that the National Council of Resistance of Iran is a political organization. We know from the courts of Europe and their honest pursuit of justice that they have never conducted terrorism. The armed resistance, while they were being hunted and jailed and exterminated and tortured and killed in jail, was all done against the regime. It was not acts of terrorism, according to the French courts. So now they are a political organization, and yet Iran is trying to kill them and to kill us. So I think we need a new conversation. I ask you all to join me in starting a new conversation about people who share our interests on Iran, not being afraid of the nuclear threat, and finally understanding that for 43 years, this regime has conducted nothing but destabilization, violations of the rule of law, violations of international norms, and stands in complete opposition to a rules-based international order. It's time for clarity. It's time for facts. Thank you to the court in Belgium. Thank you, Maryam Rajavi, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.